So I needed something to tie over my son today since he was home, right? And I'm like, my sister yesterday, she's like, why don't you just buy some chalk and we'll just like color outside all day? I'm like, oh yeah, that's perfect. I just bought the first chalk that was on Amazon, not really thinking about it. Highest rated, right?
Chalk's
package shows up.
Highest rated.
So package shows up today with 160 pieces of chalk. And I did not realize that I had bought enough chalk for a lifetime now. And so if anybody's in San Diego and needs some chalk, let me know.
That's the neighborhood chalk. That's now the neighborhood chalk.
So I cleaned out my basement because we're having some construction done. And by the way, I'm wearing a hat today because of the polar vortex. I've been up since like 4 this morning doing plowing and stuff. So it like my hair
But you're
just
in a
looks
t-shirt.
awful. So bad. Yeah, I've got jackets, Kelly. So it's really, really, really bad. But cleaning out my basement, and we were going through these cupboards, and I found this bag that was like 20 pounds of like quarter used chalk. So I'm you in the future, Wade. And I threw it all away. So.
Someone send a reminder for 20 years, Wade, to remember this video and to post it.
Yeah, reminder 20 years. We got intern Gator Hunter. That's good.
What's up, everybody?
Carry on. Pretty good.
Hi, Ralph. Megan.
That was
And
cheery.
Mary Ellen.
Hi, Ralph.
Hey, hey.
Hi, how dare you join the show?
I'm Ralph, and I'm an podcaster.
I'm a pen tester.
I'm a recovering podcaster.
I'm a recovering influencer. I used to have 15 Instagram followers.
Before TikTok got shut down, I had a career. I could have been something.
I know. What happened was I deleted the app right when it happened, and I can't get it back. So I'm screwed.
You're just done. You're just done.
Ori, do you still have hair?
No, I don't.
Oh, no.
Oh, shoo.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Shoo.
I love
Did you
that
do
people
a
are
mullet?
so like, okay, there's 2 parts about this that I love. Number 1, people are invested in my hair. I don't know why, but I'm here for it.
That's
2,
beautiful.
I like keeping people guessing that I would just chop off all my hair on a random weekend. I want to be that like unstable of a person that I would just do that.
It's your hair and Wade's mustache. That
I was about to say, it is really weird having people invested into your hair. Like, it's taken a life of its own, very much so. Like,
If you do
All
cut
right,
it
Ted
though,
Lasso.
you need to be like on YouTube with like a samurai sword or something pretty extreme.
Oh my gosh.
You get like a little mini chainsaw. I think that would go well.
A mini chainsaw.
Mini
chainsaw.
chainsaw.
Just like
You can
gas.
make those. Mini electric
Does this
ones.
fit this way?
No. If you're gonna go, just go gas.
Not really.
Just make it really obnoxious, you know.
I have multiple scars on my legs for chainsaws. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
get
should
those
have invested
pants.
in
Get
when I
those
was a
special
kid,
pants.
learning how to
Chaps?
use chainsaws? Chaps. Yeah. You know,
Would
I,
those be ass full chaps?
They're
or-
assless. They're assless, but you usually
That
really
doesn't
don't
count
wanna
as
go
a swear
full.
jar. This is just This is just product. This is just product. That's what it's called.
Product.
You don't want to go full buttless chaps when you're chopping firewood. I'm telling
Couldn't you wear pants underneath them, John? Like
You do, and it gets very warm.
no, you don't wear any pants when you wear chaps with
Okay, I
chainsaws.
got
It's just like when you cook bacon and you're not
I'm
supposed
a
to wear
lumberjack
shirts.
and I'm okay.
I'm uncomfortable.
I know you should be.
It's all about being comfortable. But yeah,
That's what the
stuff in
show's
those
about,
chaps.
making everyone uncomfortable. Usually through security-related content, but sometimes through chaps-related content.
Yeah. I just think it's funny that everyone goes immediately to, no clothing chaps. I'm like, why?
Just dirty minds, everybody. Just dirty minds. So,
Can we just go over speed bump? Jesus.
are we ready to kick this thing out? I think we're ready to kick this thing out.
I didn't
I'm
read
feeling
anything.
energized. Let's
Right.
do it.
That means we're ready.
Get,
then, if
let's
you
get
didn't
it.
read
Let's,
anything.
let's inaugurate this podcast.
Well played. Well played.
Hello and welcome to Blue Monday, also known as the single most depressing day of the entire year. And we're going to try to work in as many new order themes, like how do I feel and stuff like that. Maybe just maybe we'll get into some Joy Division as well, because it's that type of Monday. Today, we're going to be talking about how Russian cyber spies are joining together with people in Pakistan in unity. It's either that or just more precursors to World War III. I don't know. The FCC throws open the 6 gigahertz ban, so that's neat. Russia disrupts internet access for its own citizens for a change. Police shut down the Rydox cybercrime market, and it arrests 3 of their admins. Also, Europol, oh my God, ads just blew up all over the place. Europol announces takedown of major DDoS for hire network. $50 million in Radiant Capital heist blamed on North Korean hackers. And of course, I have no idea why the hell how this got in here, but no do-over for boneless chicken wings in the Ohio Supreme Court. How did that?
No way.
Sounds like
no way. That's what we're
John,
starting off with.
We're going to start.
Okay, so
we've got to start here.
That sounds like an
We've
old
gotta
one.
get this done. What the hell?
Hold on, John.
ahead.
There was a time when you weren't coming to the podcast, and we kind of got into this chicken wing rhythm where we just kept talking about chicken wings every week. It started with a story. I think it was Chicago, of a woman who during the COVID just ordered it was 17,000 chicken wings and was selling them out of the trunk of her car, right?
During COVID.
Yeah, you stole
during
it.
COVID. Someone finally looked at the books and was like, why did we spend 20 grand on chicken wings during a time when no kids were eating school lunches? Anyway, then somehow for the next 4 weeks, we found chicken wing related articles that were somehow pertinent to the show. And so now it's kind of an inside joke, and you weren't there.
I wrote a bot to look for chicken related news. Just to
yeah.
So.
Just one use of large language models. That's it. So I can
some of the puns that were thrown out by Shecky and others were just absolutely clucking amazing.
Wow.
So, do we actually have a chicken wing follow up? I don't even see this. Where did you find this?
That's a bizarre love triangle.
Open up every tab, John, and just pick them at random.
Yeah. So what is the consensus? Wait, since I wasn't here, what's the consensus? Are boneless chicken wings still chicken wings, or do you just refer to them as their original name, garbage?
It depends what state you're in.
Oh, what? Really? Oh, do
yes.
tell. This isn't.
So where is this news article? I don't see. I
feel
control
like he's
F
looking
chicken.
at I feel like
Is
he's
he looking at an
just
old
tricking
one?
us
He
into
must be looking
searching
at
for
an old
chicken.
one.
Maybe he got an
So-
ad.
So pretty
You got
much,
an
I think
ad
it
for
was.
boneless chicken wings?
Was it Indiana who did it? It was one of the main states. So this guy choked on a bone in a boneless chicken wing, then sued, saying, "Hey, these are boneless chicken wings. Why do they have bones in them?" Went all the way up to the Supreme Court of that state, and the state said, "No, boneless chicken wings can't have bones in them." And everyone's like, "Wait, what?" Then they're not boneless. Yeah. So that happened and got punched into law. So now if you're ever eating a boneless chicken wing in whatever state that was in, make sure you take care. That's why you stick with Dino Nuggets, right? Dino Nuggets all the way. You already know.
Those
Costco's
can
got
have
your back.
bones. Those can definitely have bones.
They're
For legal reasons.
I love how the comments, we blew past 100 comments, in the first 30 seconds once we started talking.
Just
about
doing a chicken wings related content.
That was just it. All right, let's jump over. Let's talk about this particular story. The Russian cyber spies hide behind other hackers. Like I said, you can look at this in one of two ways. Either A, you can look at it as nations coming together, or you can look at it as, like I said, a precursor to World War III, because Pakistan has entered the chat.
John, are you in?
I really think you're on an old link.
You're on an old
this is
link.
last-
John, are you in January 2024?
Oh my God!
This
really?
is December. Yeah, we actually did talk about
What
this.
the hell? I
So,
clicked
wait,
on the link for
okay.
the show notes in
It's
my
Here,
email.
2025, John.
Maybe I gave you the wrong
You know what?
link. Here's
Corey,
the
take over.
one for today.
Woo!
right, Corey's-
Okay, I'm taking over.
Corey's taking
I got
over.
good news for everyone. I got great news for you. If you lost your Fortinet firewall config, hackers backed it up for you.
Oh my God.
That's
This is,
juicy.
Ryan, this is actually the second article, data from
The
15,000.
second one. Oh.
Yeah. So basically, hackers have leaked 15,000 Fortinet firewall configs that were vulnerable devices.
And
So
they
for
all
those
just
that didn't
fall
know how their Fortinet firewall was configured, unfortunately,
Now
now
you do.
everyone knows how your Fortinet firewall is configured.
Any
But-
open.
Are we sure it's not
everything.
crowdsourcing? Are we going to feed this through AI and it's going to be I'm going to learn what a good and bad firewall config is?
Yeah, what a good and bad one is.
I think
They
that's
actually
a great
be
idea.
poisoning
The
data.
most likely configured Fortinet firewall is now easy to like just statistics, all of them. Like,
I mean, it is interesting to think about analyzing these and being like, of the people who are vulnerable, here's what their configs looked like. You are worse than this. You need to have a better config.
Yeah, if you're
what
worse
blows
than
my
this.
mind is the firewall has one job, right? It's literally to keep traffic out.
It's in the name. It's a wall.
It's in the name. But this company, for some reason, just lets them in. I don't understand.
you guys are absolutely wrong. You don't know about the firewall, VPN, zero trust, IDS, XDR
Machine
configurations
learning.
of every firewall out there.
yeah.
True. The next generation wall is 2 feet higher and cannot be hacked by CISA.
And they all run Outlook on-prem.
Okay. So Corey, we need to look for. We got to get a firewall vendor, like at RSA, to have their slogan be, "Our firewall is 2 feet higher." Something like that. Because I love that. Hey, can we get a shirt? Since that's what we do, if we can get a hold of the content and community team, we need a T-shirt that says "Our firewall is 2 feet higher."
It's been a
We
long
can
time
make a
since
fake-
we requested a shirt.
We could definitely make a fake firewall vendor that advertises in airports and stuff, and like just eventually leads you down the if you try to buy it, it just sends you to Black Hills, and it's like, sorry.
There you go.
But
We were lucky.
okay,
Great
so
idea.
I mean, I will say, to close the loop on the technical side of things, that people ask, are any of the configs good? The answer is probably no, because this vulnerability
public.
only affects people who expose their management interfaces to the internet. So, the
They were
assumption
bad
here
to
is
start with. Is
yeah,
that kind of what you mean?
yeah, if you already expose your config or your management interface to the internet, you probably don't have this, solidest config. Talking to some of our customers about this, because we've, of course, mapped this vulnerability like 80 times because it just keeps coming up. The only instances we've seen have been like one of our customers had a range and we were like, what is this? And they were like, this is our parking garages. We have a parking garage vendor that somehow has deployed Fortinet firewalls with default configs into the parking garages. We don't know how or where they are. Like they're like buried in the basements of these parking garages. We can't get to them. So I think it maybe is a lot of that. I mean, I will say at internet scale, 15,000 isn't that bad. It is bad because they're all firewall configs, but that isn't that high of a number. Patch your Fortinets and don't expose them to the internet.
It was
This is what it is.
CVE 2022 as well.
I do love how these two articles in our show notes, now that I finally got to the right date, they're like right next to each other. The top one is Fortinet warns of an auth bypass 0 day, followed by data from 15,000 Fortinet firewalls leaked by hackers. Like
Shot and chaser.
that.
The funny thing
Shot
is-
and chaser.
Yeah, shot and chaser. One is from now and is a 0 day. The other one is from 2 years ago and is however many days that is, 720 day or something.
I mean, do they like this kind of news coverage? I don't understand. Like, what is?
Hey, there's no publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah,
Except this publicity.
Share price.
It might be bad.
Share price is probably up.
it's
Share
probably
prices are
like,
unchanged.
no one cares anymore. No one cares. They're like,
No
you know
one
what?
cares.
It just happens all
It's
the
up.
time.
It's
to
up
everybody.
20%, or sorry, 0.2%.
That's
20%.
hey, but I want to call that out. Like that whole no one cares anymore. It is kind of liberating as a pen test company. Now that you have people that are coming to the realization that you get hacked and share price dips and then it's right back up a couple of weeks later. It's kind of liberating for the pen testing community, right? Because it's just like we do our jobs, and if it works, great. If not, it's okay. As it just doesn't feel like it's all that weight on our shoulders anymore. Because the attackers will get in more than likely anyway. So
The value of their stocks are up 50% for the last year.
Oh my god.
they'll be
That's
back.
just good business practices.
They'll
0
be
days are
back.
great.
They're like Fortinet. Do you know
Okay,
the amount
here,
of times
let's do this.
Fortinet's been in the news?
Has their revenue gone down? Graham, can you hunt that down? Has their
I can
revenue
look
gone
for
down?
it.
It probably
I
went
will
up. They
say-
probably put more lights on their boxes. They blink harder, and
John, the wall is 2 feet higher. Okay,
2 feet.
If I
those
was
2
the
feet
Fortinet
matter. The
marketing
average
person-
height of the average person is going up. You got to get those higher
You got to keep
walls.
up. You got to keep
Yeah,
up with the rate of growth. You have to.
If I was the
Correct. What
Fortinet
if-
marketing person, I would be so happy with these numbers to report on my annual review. Be like, yeah, our
Annual
our
why
numbers
should
are
get a
crazy.
raise.
Everyone's talking about us. They just wouldn't know why.
KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
KPIs.
My OKRs.
Hey, wait a minute, Kelly.
So okay, since the point of the show is making us uncomfortable, let's talk about Salt Typhoon apparently also being in the U.S. government before they were in telcos.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
A separate called it another goofy cyber name, and we were able to, based on the visibility that we had within the federal networks, connect some of the dots. I do love that quote that Jen is basically like, it's just another goofy cyber name, which is kind of, if you think about it, probably not the best thing that we can do. But
if you can't laugh at it, you're kind of screwed. That's
that comes back to it's Blue Monday. So this gets into, we keep on talking about things like ransomware, info stealers, all the stuff that has immediate impacts to organizations and individuals. But one of the things we've been talking about that on the show for a while is we really, really need to be concerned about the persistent threats, right? Whenever they came up with advanced persistent threat, that name meant something. Advanced meant that they could bypass existing security controls, right? They could bypass your firewalls. They could bypass your endpoint product protection, whatever it is you're running. And persistent means they want to stay in your network. Like if you're looking at ransomware is not an advanced persistent threat. That is not their goal. Their goal is not to persist.
Well, it can be. It actually can. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to argue too much, but I will say that there are ransomware threat actors that they classify as APTs because their motives are different than just immediately get in and drop crypto lockers everywhere. But anyway,
well, I'm talking specifically the ones that are locking you out right away, right? So advanced persistent threat, they're going to cause you long-term damage. And when you're looking at nation state actors like China and Russia, somewhat a lesser extent lately, like that's what they want to do. They want to dwell inside of your network and siphon off as much data as they possibly can. And I don't feel like the industry has really came to grips with that type of threat actor. And reading these articles and kind of seeing how this all unwinds, I think that that's being more and more like apparent every single day.
John, that's a great segue to the Chinese threat. And you had some interesting conversations with people over the weekend regarding TikTok. And we talk about I know. We talk about security awareness training or working with lay people. And I had legitimate conversations this weekend with people saying, why are we picking on the Chinese by banning TikTok? And it's stories like this. It's like, hey, they've been picking on us for a long time.
Oh, I agree. It's also very weird because if you would have like shown me a picture of the future like 10 years ago and said, hey, in the future, we're going to have in-depth political conversations about a tool called TikTok, I would be horribly confused. And I wonder how the hell we ended up here at some point.
So it's off, right? Like TikTok is fully off as of
today.
It's
back. It was off for a few hours.
It went down on Sunday and came back on Sunday.
Okay.
And, God, stepping away from the politics of it. But I hear what you're saying, Kelly, but here's the problem I have with it. As soon as TikTok was shut down and believed to shut down, they were moving to a completely different app that was ran by ByteDance in China. And I don't understand how picking on one app is really going to solve this problem. Because if you look underneath the hood, a whole bunch of our supply chain, semiconductor production is all done in China. Like, why? Like, this seems very performative to me. And by the way, this legislation is bipartisan, folks. So if you're a Democrat or Republican, you want to start doing the point, it was bipartisan, right? So it seems like it's performative bipartisan legislation that kind of acknowledges that there's a problem without actually trying to get to the root of the problem.
Well, the interesting thing that a lot of people don't understand is, it was all of ByteDance's applications, CapCut, all the rest of them that were supposedly banned. And then, I know we're not trying to get too political, but I'm not sure how in the world this thing got reversed in under 24 hours when the Supreme Court said, yeah, it's legal to ban them.
I can answer that.
Please,
there was a provision within the law that allowed for it to be stayed for 90 days if there was a review. And that's the clause that they basically went under. So it's not reversed. It's quote unquote under review. So it's basically just kind of a stay of execution on this. But I still come back to who gives a darn.
I
didn't know.
It was like 80%, John.
No,
80%.
but it's not 80%. It just
that was like a $1 swear. That wasn't. That wasn't a $50 swear.
Okay.
Because John, you got to remember,
$15 for EFF, everybody.
Storms.
You got to keep in mind
the swear
the human
jar
brain
ticker at the bottom needs to be updated. Reset the
human
clock.
brain comes pre-installed with autocorrect, and everyone's brain just auto-corrected what you said into the
There you go.
Yeah,
but also this thing with China isn't new. I want to kind of go back to it. I can't remember what year it was. I want to say it was like 2007. In the classified world, we had to go through and remove a whole bunch of Cisco devices because they were backdoored by the Chinese. Like the actual device was backdoored. And I remember when that happened, we were like, well, this is going to create a change in the way the United States buys their technology to ensure that we aren't going to be buying as much as we do from China. That didn't change anything, right?
Well,
so I just don't understand how people get worked up over TikTok without fully understanding the implications of all the other crap that we're getting from China that's probably backdoored as well.
So John,
to go back farther with like the political stuff, right? So the big hacking was going on all throughout like the 2000s, and then 2008 Xi Jinping actually came into power and was doing a tour around the world because he was the new
seeking
dictator.
out that sweet honey, Wade.
And
this podcast banned in China.
There was a conversation between him and Obama at the time, and this is supposedly how it went. Obama said, "You need to stop hacking us, or hard trade regulations are going to fall." Right. This was more than 10 years ago. At the time, China wasn't as powerful as they are now, but there was an actual decrease in known Chinese threat actor drops.
Yes,
after
but Wade,
that.
at the same time, a lot of other threat actors kicked up.
Exactly.
Basically bounced through other people out there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I guess
my main thing is that can't be done anymore, right? Like we can't show a force of power because China has too much of an economical stranglehold on the tech market right now.
Well, it's like Brian just asked, is my smart kitchen Chinese made? It's actually South Korean. I have a lot of Samsung products.
My baby monitor is South Korean made, and it was pinging out to China for some reason.
Oh,
so
right, that's just
like
it. When you're talking about a lot of the underlying semiconductors and chipsets and everything, they're all built in China as well.
I've got to put covers over half the cameras in my house that are Chinese. You know, that just makes sense.
You not just wear the black car?
I've got some cameras in my house, and if there's someone in China that's watching my video feed when I'm walking around in my underwear in the middle of the night,
I know, right?
Like, you mean in your
my dog crap on the floor at 2 a.m. Something really smells bad. I really feel bad for them. Like, if you're doing that to me, I feel bad for you. There's better things you can do for your life.
I legitimately do have one of the Chinese robotic vacuums, right? And people are like, "Oh, well, I better disconnect it so it doesn't." I'm like, "So it can map my house? Like, what? Does it need a floor plan? Have they heard of Zillow?" Like,
right?
Yeah. A vacuum to figure out where my bedroom's at.
I mean, so okay, to kind of
to go back to the higher. That funny? I find funny.
To go back to the higher level discussion here, I think the reason why, first of all, never underestimate the power of a poster child, right? The you know example, a bad example of, oh, this is what happens to Chinese companies when they enter the U.S. market in the wrong way, whatever. The other thing I think that made it more, like you mentioned, it was bipartisan. I think the perception that TikTok particularly targets kids or teenagers, like younger people, was particularly scary because we all know, you know, people's brains aren't fully developed. Like they're a vulnerable class of people. And so I think that's like maybe why it was able to be pushed through so aggressively, even though I agree with you, you know, everything's made in China, blah, blah, blah. Like that is true. But this is still like an example of, you know, maybe I do think for the record that platform is a platform. And at the end of the day, if you force it to be sold to Elon Musk or whoever else, it doesn't really change the nature of the platform.
Yeah.
Like
I think, you know, I think the bad stuff is happening whether it's Chinese or not. That's just kind of my opinion. I really don't care if it gets shut down or not. I'm just saying, like, it did seem kind of weird to target it. It was bipartisan and all this other fun stuff and blah blah blah. Yep. I'm still confused of the why. Like, and I understand, like, and to keep it security focused, I kind of understand that, you know, China was attacking us, but like on the other side, I'm kind of like, but there is other apps just like
don't put it on U.S. government phones. Don't put it on ban it. Yeah, like
that out there. What exactly is TikTok doing that Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of these other platforms isn't doing? Right?
Yeah, I mean that's
filtering certain.
It's pulling down all this sensitive information, and it's like, And then you can even layer on, it's like, but then it might be accessible by China. A lot of these companies have memos of understanding with the Chinese government that they will open up their data for the Chinese government, just like they have in the United States with a proper warrant being executed. So this gets back into that much larger issue. What is it about this that's so unique, right?
I think it's more about.
I understand that they're targeting children, but they all are targeting children, right? Except for Reddit, which is squarely at the Generation X Xennial people, and they'll die because of it.
I mean, Facebook targets people over 40, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no question. And I'm right there in their demographic.
In the two apps that they were pushing in replacement, like sort of last minute, there was a 216% increase in people on Duolingo trying to learn Mandarin because they were pushing Red Note and Lemonade, and I looked at the APKs for both of those, and I think the word backdoor was in there 8 times. And you look at all the URLs; they're all .cn. If you break apart Red Note and Lemonade, I didn't look at TikTok, but I thought it was really interesting what was inside there.
Well, yeah. Isn't it delightful?
You're throwing out the baby.
Isn't it refreshing whenever they just call it backdoor?
It's easier.
And they hard code the link.
Yeah, it's easier to find for them.
There's nothing but respect there. We're not even hiding it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tinfoil hat.
I mean,
what if this just fully backfired and now half the U.S. learns Chinese or Mandarin now, right? And we just become even more powerful because now they can't say stuff about us, and we can do business trades better.
Well,
we learned Mandarin, and then we taught them social dissent.
Oh my god!
Well, so let's pivot to another article. Let's talk about the FBI. Let's talk about the FBI. This is a kind of a funny little completion of this. So there's an article in Ars Technica called "The FBI Forces Chinese Malware to Delete Itself from Thousands of U.S. Computers." Kind of an interesting thing. Basically, the FBI did a press release on January 14th saying that it forced it. Basically, they took over the C2 server for this malware and then forced it to delete itself. This was, again, PRC backed, but focused on the threat group Mustang Panda, which was affecting a version of Plug X, which is apparently a malware. So it's kind of an interesting, cyber warfare, I guess you could call it, fight back.
And they worked with the French on this one. Let's give the French some credit. That's it. That's all we got, huh?
Wow. I feel like in some way that was derogatory.
In some way it was.
I'm sorry if that was derogatory, French people. I know you already hate me anyway, so it's whatever. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's I think the biggest thing is let's if we were to turn the turntables all the way around, we could argue how many of these apps that are US based large companies are allowed in China? Is Facebook allowed in China? Is Google allowed in China? Is YouTube allowed in China?
Well, TikTok isn't even allowed in China.
Exactly.
Well, they have they have their own version of
Good point, Graham. Good point.
It's called surveillance talk.
It's called surveillance talk.
Yeah. So
they
it's
talk about it. Yeah.
It's a weird thing to think about of, other countries saying that, the U.S. is backing Facebook to go harvest a bunch of people's data. It is kind of a weird
I think
thing.
The funniest part of it all is that the reason people want their TikTok is not for Chinese content or anything. It's for literally American content by American creators on that platform.
Yes. But then it's scroll propaganda. That was weird. Scroll. That's what senators are imagining. They're imagining.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble whenever a high school kid comes up to you. You're in trouble whenever a high school or middle school boy comes up to you. You're like, oh, this Andrew Tate guy. He speaks a lot of sense. I think he makes some really great points on carrying swords and women drivers. It's like, oh my God, what the hell are you getting that from? TikTok. And then I just block it in my house. So
you're saying that
Firewalls.
But then everyone's going to move to that other app that's
I mean, not TikTok or whatever. So that was the other thing. I had a conversation with my wife about TikTok. Is I was like, it doesn't matter because those influencers aren't going to just be like, well, hanging up my hat, that's all done, I'm over, right? They're going to just move to the next place, right?
I will say though, I think TikTok is actually positioned really poorly in the market right now because you already have Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, and everyone posts on all three anyway. Yeah. So TikTok doesn't really.
They don't have the market capital, right? So no. I mean, they're behind the ball. But see, I want to point this back to last week when we have these discussions. This is a very prime example that we've been harping about for, I don't know, years and decades, that these users want what they want, and consequences be damned, they want it. And F the security measures. I mean, I know it's TikTok and it's not that bad, but that's just like saying MFA and all these other things. Like, there's a report that was leaked out yesterday or Friday, I forget, that over 800 known devices that are coming out of manufacturing have default passwords, even after the provisioning of an IoT device. I mean, come on. This is just another staple in the greater thing.
2025.
I know, but still, I'm just saying, this is part of the whole staple of all the problem that we have.
See, and this is like, I was sad a couple of weeks ago. I was where you are, Eric. I was sad. I've learned to embrace the chaos monkey.
This is the way.
We keep saying, come to the dark side. We have cookies, pen testing. Yeah, that's where it's at, kids.
Watch out. Those monkeys are strong.
Those default creds are sweet default creds. Like, we love default
Your
creds.
sadness is my drink.
Don't worry, John. When there's a government-approved seal of secure, it'll be fine.
Are we going to talk about when those stickers come out?
No.
No, we're not going to talk about that again. Let's just follow this China thing. Let's keep going. So there was a huge data breach of Chinese, couple of China companies. So Weibo and
who hacked
QQ
them?
Messenger. There's been basically 1.5 billion Chinese citizens' information was leaked online. So
it's gonna be
I'm not going to say this is I don't know if this is in any way related, but these kinds of breaches do affect not just U.S. citizens; they also affect Chinese citizens. So,
oh my God! One of our listeners just said, "My ex used to say your tears give me strength." You're in a bad relationship.
That's probably why
he did say X. They did say X.
Yeah, well,
I was just reading the Fortinet article from the last one, and the IPs they released are like the Cloudflare DNS, localhost, and Google DNS.
No way,
dude. Those are all hackers.
Scroll halfway down.
You didn't know that localhost is the prime hacker?
I mean, you're not wrong.
Okay,
but
I gotta talk about that because I got into a conversation with somebody about Darktrace. And by the way, I think the technology and the AI and the ML that's in Darktrace is pretty cool, but I think that their marketing is poopy.
Wait, John, what's Darktrace?
Darktrace is an NDR, and it does artificial intelligence.
NDR or NDR?
Network.
We need more acronyms in
cybersecurity. We need more
acronyms. Can you explain that one?
Network detection and response. So it detects attack traffic or C2 traffic, and then it automatically stops it. Got into a bit of a conversation about automatic shunning and stopping and how that's bad. And so, speaking of this DNS thing, somebody was like, well, if it detects bad things, you can just shut it down. And I'm like, well, Darktrace, last I knew, focuses specifically on text records for DNS. And I've seen environments where they basically see it like C2 traffic and they shun all of the DNS traffic, and it bricks the entire environment from getting to the internet. And they were asking how. And most organizations, their primary resolution server is their domain controller. So all the endpoints go for recursive lookups through their domain controller, and their domain controller makes a connection outbound to some third-party DNS server that they're using either from their ISP or, like we were talking about, Google in this situation. And if you have it set up to automatically kill that traffic, that's bad. That shuts down all DNS resolution for your entire environment. So whenever you look at this and you see people talking about IOCs like communication to 127.0.0.1, and we can see that 8.8.8.8 was used as a C2 server. This is the stuff that years ago was like threat intelligence feeds suck, because that's the type of intelligence a lot of these products were doing back in the day. But I read that too, Graham. And it's just like the same garbage. And I have had customers that are like, we probably need to shut down all the traffic that's going to, this Cloudflare IP or this Google DNS server.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the old classic. You're doing a pen test. You're using CDN for your C2 channel. And they're like, oh, we went ahead and blocked cloudfront.net. And you're like, I'm sorry, we did what? Don't do that. Undo.
How many SOCs have you been in where a level 1 analyst just goes to the PDF, grabs all the IOCs, and just throws them into crits and just blocks everything?
That does happen.
I could easily see all of this being done. And then next thing you know, the networks.
Do you know who gets blamed when that happens?
Who?
the testing company.
The intern.
It's like, how dare you put that in the report to force us to do something against ourselves without testing it thoroughly?
Maybe
that
should be a finding. That's a great finding.
Read. So,
no, they're going to blame the AI now because Darktrace uses AI.
I need to make it clear that's really rare. That doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. But that goes back into, I think that there's an oversimplification of security for a lot of these things where they're like, just give me the IPs to block, man. I'll just block those IPs. It's like it doesn't work that way.
So I've been doing a lot of testing in Kubernetes, and I one time had someone ask me why it was even a problem, because you can just restart the container if there's a security issue. And I was like, well, if you knew there was a security issue and you just restart the container, that's not fixing anything.
Do you know that security issue might come back every time you restart the container?
You know what? Here's how you fix that. One, you stop caring. Like anytime you have someone say that, just be like, you got me. All the security research I've been doing for the past few years and specializing is a complete lie and a sham.
You got me.
You got me. You got me. Just restart it, and please go do that. Have fun with it, and let me know how that works out for you in the long run. So,
job security.
All right, we got plugs. John, do the plugs. You're the boss.
Oh, the plugs.
Plug.
Oh yeah. BHIS. We do pen testing, IR, and SOC work. We also have Mile High Hacking Fest. Are you in Denver? Would you like to be in Denver? By the way, we got into a huge argument about Wild West Hacking Fest at Mile High. People were like, it sounds like we're condoning smoking pot. For me, it was
you were like, no, we're condoning
geography. Legalized pot.
We're just condoning geography. Okay,
we're just condoning 5280, right? 5280, the Mile High city. It has nothing to do with marijuana, as far as we're concerned. For you, you do you. That's fine. But we're going to be there. You can scan this QR code, and nothing bad will happen ever.
Maybe
winking
stop
just
thinking
makes
about
it awkward.
marijuana so much.
Yeah, exactly. So as Ralph is trying to scan it. So yeah, BHIS, we do security stuff. We got a conference and Antisyphon Training. Oh my God, BSides San Diego.
Hey John, who do you think is doing the keynote?
I don't know.
At BSides San Diego? Am I coming down there?
You are. I didn't know that.
I thought it was Kelly. I'm confused. I thought Kelly was.
Did I agree to this? No, I don't.
Yeah, John, we're doing it together.
Am I confused? Where is Kelly giving the keynote? Is it not?
This is horrible advertising, by the way. We are awful at this. Kelly, please save us. What are we going to be talking? What are you going to be talking about BSides San Diego?
Well, we are going to be talking about GRC, and we're going to be riffing on bad medicine.
Oh, it says someone scanned.
I was waiting to see how long that awkward pause would go, and I was going to make some reference to Bon Jovi, GRC.
It's exactly Bon Jovi.
Bad
medicine. What is bad medicine? Is that really a Bon Jovi reference?
Come to San Diego and you'll find out, my dear.
Wow,
come to San Diego. Oh, that sounds terrible.
We need to go back down there and rent out the aircraft carrier again.
That was really cool. I agree.
Do you know how many people ask me every time I see them, when is BHIS coming back to San Diego? And I'm like,
so we're going to be doing a conference with Antisyphon in DC this year. So we're doing Denver. We're doing another security training conference in DC this year. And next year I want to expand and go back to San Diego.
Wait, that's like 30 minutes from me.
So we can do that. I don't know, whatever. Are you guys going to throw up another advertising thing for me? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Webcast.
You want to register for our webcast? You can scan that QR code. And they're totally not spammy at all. We do tons of free webcasts and free training and free content and just free stuff all the time. That's because we are horrible at this capitalism thing. We haven't quite figured it out, but we're going to keep sucking at it because it seems to be working.
Speaking of horrible at capitalism, John, I will be doing a webcast this Thursday, and I'm going to be giving away a free tool. I didn't even ask you, but
I did. I don't know if you saw, but I did the write-up for your free tool.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, look at the email when it comes out. I kind of rewrote it. The content community team is like, we don't want this to sound like it's by anybody that has any mastery of marketing or the English language.
Oh,
and you jumped right up there. Yeah. So,
all right.
So, yeah.
All right, that's enough plugs.
That's enough of that.
Let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yes, there we go. Pick another one, Corey.
Oh, I got one. This is a really short one, but did you guys hear Microsoft Exchange has finally reached into support for 2016 and 2019?
Is that a joke?
No, that's not real.
That's a joke, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. No, that's real.
They're still coming out with new versions of Exchange, though.
Yes. Okay. So let me close the loop on this. Exchange 2016 finally reached its mainstream support in October, and then this is the extended support. I'm sorry, is January 9th, 2024. So the October 2025 for Exchange Server 2016 and Exchange Server 2019 reach into support. But they're going to have a Exchange Server SE for a special longer edition so that you can keep on running Exchange.
Can we get like a Sopranos style drama of like Microsoft basically running a protection racket in businesses with the extended support thing? Being like two guys show up and they're like, we'll have the software. And they're like, but you don't have any money. And they're like, we'll have the software unless you want any trouble. It's like, what is going on?
It's funny.
Yeah.
They're just servers that we're running. They get email, and it doesn't cost them any more money to get these emails. A lot of them are just running over port 25 insecure, right? Just I mean, this is how they've been for the last 20 years.
China is helping patch them with the 0 days.
China is patching them as we speak. It's wild. It is wild. But you know what? The email keeps arriving, and they just keep running.
As long as the spice flows, the showdown report says there's still 194,000 Exchange servers.
Exposed to the internet. That's just exposed to. That's not even all the Exchange.
No,
servers.
that's just
How
exposed
else
to the
do you
internet.
use an Exchange
Technically,
server?
that's how they work, right? Isn't it email that kind of have to be?
Yeah, but if we look at their
Oh
port
no,
breakdown,
you don't know about
hold on.
networks that
If we
aren't
look at the
exposed to the
port
internet.
breakdown, there's
not by
port
Fortinet.
443. There's 128,000 of them.
No, that's
Outlook
right.
web is
OWA.
123,000. That's a huge number still.
It's recommended in security practices to take a really high value server and just hang it straight
Just
off
put
the
it
internet.
right on the internet.
Yes, and make sure it has like required to have admin credentials on the server too. Like
Yeah, have to. I
Like,
do
we've
love
heard
it.
of
We
zero
talk to
trust, right?
customers. We don't like
customers. Zero.
I've talked to some companies that are like, well, according to such and such standard, we can't go to the cloud. We have to run our own. I'm like, no, you don't. I don't know of any. Kelly, you might know. Are there any standards out there that basically dictate that you have to run your own email server?
Yes, Richard Stallman's rules for doing business, version 1.2.
So,
the only ones I've ever seen is for privacy. They want to ensure if there is some sort of lawsuit or seizure that they physically have to come to the office, because Microsoft may not and probably will never tell the client that there was a warrant issued to them to issue out the information of the Exchange server.
yeah, but once again, we can get into that. It's just, I agree with you. People are still making these arguments, but they need to stop.
Wasn't it in
Well,
Team Vogue
Microsoft
or
would just say,
something?
we don't have the logs. You didn't have the licensing for that.
What
Sorry.
logs? Well, within 3 hours after the attack.
Yeah, they're like, oh, government, you're gonna have to pay for the licensing on those logs if you're gonna do the subpoena. You're gonna have to upgrade to an S5 subpoena.
S5. S5. All right.
Is this?
It's funny how they say that they don't have the logs, and all of a sudden you pay for it, and you get the past 6 months that are there. So they got them.
There's a special place in hell, Eric. There's a special place in hell.
So, I guess if anyone has an article, throw it in here. But on the Exchange thing, it is kind of interesting. You basically have a choice between a product that's going to get AI enabled in it without you. Like, you have no choice. You will be integrated into AI, or a product that's hopelessly insecure and you have to hang it straight off the internet in a high trust environment. It's like, can we just have squirrel mail or whatever? Like, it's
That's actually, I've thought about that from time to time. So
I think it'd be fine.
So
it'd be fine. Graham says it's fine. He's a Kubernetes expert.
I think so.
So it's fine.
Yeah.
well, all you have to
just
do is
reboot.
Just have to restart the container.
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just restart the mail server.
It's a zombie squirrel. Like if it's running in Kubernetes, it's a zombie squirrel. Mail
Okay,
server.
there's one that just Snyk. Does everyone know Snyk? SNYK.
No. What do they do?
Snyk.
I thought it was Snyk.
Is it Snyk
I
or
only
Snyk?
know them from sponsoring
Sneak.
John Hammond videos.
They
Snyk.
sponsored Darknet Diaries, and I'm pretty sure it's Snyk. Anyway, they are actually, I think, pretty heavily used throughout the interwebs and among the DevSecOps community, which I don't know what that means, but I've heard other people say it. Basically, this is a company that does a lot of like supply chain security, scanning, stuff like that. But interestingly, one of the researchers there, or at least they had Snyk in their username, was deploying malicious NPM packages Which I guess I don't know the full story on this. I don't know if anyone does, but from an InfoSec company perspective, it's scary to think about the companies we trust for security and scanning also publishing malware. Like, I don't know if it's an info stealer compromised the account, or if it's just someone impersonating a user and saying, oh yeah, it's definitely Snyk, but their name is actually SN4K. I feel like it's probably just impersonation, but just brings home the ever important like supply chain thing, right? So apparently, after they published this blog, the researcher took them down. Maybe it's like someone else's blog that they were trying to write that went a little haywire and they got a little carried away and accidentally deployed malware.
Do you see the code linked in that article?
Yeah.
There's variables called payload. Like if you're running that, that's not good. Like at least
an NPM, and the key with NPM is that if you're a developer and you're writing NPM, you don't actually know what you're running. That's actually a requirement. You can't know what you're running when you're doing NPM. I mean, you can. This is a joke, obviously, but it's definitely pretty difficult. There was that story from years ago where like someone who had an NPM library that just reorients text to the left like broke. It was like a 2-line piece of code and it broke like half the internet. Like that was a story from a few years ago. So NPM is just kind of a supply chain mess in general.
It's kind of interesting because they're attacking Cursor employees. Is that what they're saying in here?
I guess so, yeah. I guess they're going after cursor.com. Like, there's a lot. It's basically an article with kind of an open end of like, maybe they're doing a blog post about people using malicious packages. Maybe they're doing a bug bounty for cursor.com. Maybe there's just real threat actors impersonating a Snyk employee.
So what's interesting about Cursor is that is it's an AI code writing tool, which I actually use actively. And the way it works really is it's just VS Code. And it will use one of the large language models that you choose, and you can have it look at your code and write and improve and all this other fun stuff, right? But I'm just kind of curious about like what the angle was here, like why they were going after Cursor. Like, were they trying to get possibly that package into Cursor to provide that like a wider spread through?
That's what I thought.
Like through the Cursor application, right?
That would be the assumption, right? Is it's like, if you look at it perfectly good faith, it could be them doing security research for this application and trying to get malware published into their repo to show them the potential negative impacts of that. It could also be a real legitimate attack against this company. So I don't know. It's
someone's DEF CON talk. I feel like we did.
We might. Oh, we didn't, but Source Code Red might have.
Yeah.
Right. I will say though, looking at the bottom, looking at the guy Paul McCarty, he looks pretty nice. I feel like you'd have to forgive him eventually.
Yeah. Can we talk about UEFI bootkits?
The low level.
No, that's too scary. We can't talk about that.
It is too scary. I don't want to talk
below
about
me.
This, okay.
Hit us with the UEFI bootkit.
I've spent a lot of time, like in my early part of my career, working on rootkits and bootkits and different types of application level backdoors and kernel level bootkits and things of that nature. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is whenever we're talking about UEFI, we're talking about TPM and all the security controls that are baked into the operating system at a really core level whenever it starts, and especially whenever it loads up the drivers for the operating system and whether or not they're signed appropriately or not. This is always fascinating to me, but I look at it as like sidechain attacks where I don't know how often we actually see this being exploited in the wild. And I don't know if that's just a factor of the fact of it's hard and it's really just not something that we see very often because application level backdoors still today work fantastically well. Or is it that it's being used by nation state level adversaries and it's being used so effectively that we're not detecting it? It's kind of like that question of, do we live in the matrix or not? And how would you actually find out about it? But there's a bunch of UEFI applications that have a vulnerability because they're using a common library. And basically you can exploit these applications, which I can't find in the article. If anyone else can see anything, I think you need to be administrator to modify these binaries. I'm not 100% certain, but it seems to me like you have to be admin to be able to hijack the applications, to inject your bootloader backdoor, to bypass and neutralize the like the security checks for drivers on next boot. And this might be one of those areas where I kind of agree with Microsoft. If somebody's an admin on your system, you're screwed in so many delightful ways. This is just yet another one of those ways. And I wanted to get people's opinion on these types of like bootkits and backdoors. Do you think it's one of those things that's like, no, they're being used, we just aren't seeing them because it's nation state level shenanigans? Or is it just like there's so many other easy ways to make this stuff work that there's really the attackers aren't moving into this space? Security features, absolutely, but we haven't locked down application level backdoors at all. So I'm wondering how much effort should we spend worrying about these types of things, I guess?
So before we get too deep into opinions, let me try to wrap my caveman brain around this actual vulnerability, because this is really complicated, at least in my opinion. So is what's happening here, if a company sells, like let's say Dell sells a laptop, and it includes like a system recovery utility with the operating system, and that one of those utilities includes these affected applications. So Greenware, GreenGuard, Radix, Smart Recovery, Sanfong, Easy Backup System. If that's installed on my system, then anyone can backdoor my system that would persist across installs. Is that basically the vulnerability?
But I believe you have to be admin, and I haven't confirmed that. I went to the technical details. I don't see anything about this. There's no publicly available code. It's just researchers have discovered it.
I would assume so. I would assume so, because it does say you have to modify the reloader EFI binary, but it's a PE. So it's like a PE loader that just doesn't verify the signature on whatever it loads.
So whenever your system starts, Corey, just kind of break it down. There's like two different states that it goes through. Okay. So when your system starts up, it goes through a state where you can start modifying any of the aspects and the attributes of memory before it actually moves into like a protected mode where there's protections and partitions within memory that go up. So when you're looking at tools like Conboot, which is probably the easiest example, Conboot basically boots itself first, then it loads the operating system. But in doing so, when the operating system first starts up, it basically goes through and it modifies core libraries and like the local security authority subsystem service so that any user ID and password combo will be accepted, because it can actually edit those libraries in memory. Now, as your operating system progresses through its boot process, eventually it does put up those protections, but it actually modifies before those protections go in place. Does that make sense? That part.
Yes. I just the thing that I'm not getting is, how did anyone get these applications to begin with? There's a list of 6 affected or 7 affected applications.
A lot of them look like they're backup applications, right? Like sys return, GreenGuard, Smart Recovery, Easy Backup Systems. So
you're just Googling like reset password windows, and this is popping up.
Yeah, you're just looking for something like you can put on your systems where basically people can do a restore, kind of like a commercial version of volume shadow copy, right? So these products, because of the way that they can set restore points and go back to restore points, they're basically bootkits in and of themselves. And what I mean by that is they have that capability built into it because that is the product that they're serving. So by the attackers being able to take advantage of these different libraries that are being used, and I can't remember what library it was, no, that's the malware that does it. One of the libraries that is commonly used by all of these different applications has that particular vulnerability in it. It allows the attacker to basically load their malware in as part of the process that is already there. Like these programs have that capability. So it basically piggybacks and trojanizes these tools so they can do it. And I had the dynamic link library.
John, I'll jump in on your question there. Sure. We've been talking about UEFI, I can't even say it, firmware. Actually, back in the earlier versions of the CIS controls, we started talking about it in 6. Now, is it something that's easy to check and modify? No, it's hard to do, but it's something we've been looking at and calling out as part of our cyber hygiene practices for a long time. Who's actually utilizing this type of malware? That's a hard question to answer, but from a hygiene point of view, it is on our radar.
Yeah, but that gets to my question, why? I'm genuinely asking this question because, like, in my career, we've used backdoors like this, but a lot of it's academic. It's like demonstrating, here's basically Hacker Defender by Holy Father was one of the first tools that I saw doing a lot of this type of rootkit type shenanigans, right? And that's fundamentally different than Back Orifice 2000, which was more of an application level backdoor. But whenever it came to looking at the malware that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis, a lot of the malware is that traditional either kernel level rootkit functionality built in with an application level backdoor. But actually going into the bootkit, we just haven't seen much of it. And this gets into the trusted platform module and all these different things. So it seems like there's a lot of money being put in to try to stop these types of attacks, but I don't see actual attackers utilizing these types of techniques very often at all.
Yeah.
How would you detect it?
Assumption.
I think how would you detect it? What tools would detect this?
Oh, you'd have to use an NDR, right? Like,
right?
You know, that's you'd have to be watching the network. And even Holy Father, like Hacker Defender, that had the capability where it could piggyback. So if you had a web server, it could piggyback all of its communication over the existing web server port. And that's something that's like 20 years old. And they had that type of capability. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely that capability. But usually the reason why we see nation state level adversaries kind of eschew these types of attacks is it generally is tricky to pull off consistently within a variety of different operating system service packs and language packs. But like I said, I'm just kind of throwing this out there because I used to teach this stuff all the time and I find it endlessly fascinating, but it's one of those areas in computer security. I'm like, do we need to spend this much time focusing on it? Do people really need to be that aware of these types of techniques? Or is it just something that's technically interesting, but not necessarily germane to people's day-to-day lives?
I think it's two things. One, the amount of people who can write a UEFI bootkit, it's like very, very few, and they could be making a lot of money at Intel doing security work or any other low-level hardware place. The other thing is, why would I do this when I can just run a cron job and no one's ever going to look at it?
Or better yet, I get some creds that get me into an exposed management interface on your Fortinet, and I can just come right in.
On the opposite side too, though, it's like how even if they were to do it, how would I ever detect this? That's my thing. Like I've written some stuff to detect it being loaded in.
No, you could detect it on disk.
Yeah, if it's dead. Like
if it's
if it's dead. So
well, the other thing, so just to kind of close the loop, the reason we're even talking about this is because a researcher disclosed it to Microsoft, and they actually revoked the certs that were affected by this. So, like, theoretically, if you're checking revocation, you're already good. It's patched, it's fixed.
But that's built into the operating system, though. I mean, it does that type of search.
Yeah, well, I don't know the nitty gritty, but I'm assuming that Microsoft coded their UEFI to check revocation lists before it boots.
Okay. Well, I think also the people that need to worry about
what
this
you do on that, Corey, and this is awesome, is yes, they do have that capability. You just insert your shim before it checks that capability, and then you can hijack those libraries as well. The point is, if I'm admin, there's no end to the horrible shenanigans I can pull on an operating system. Once you get to that point, especially whenever you're at the bootloader perspective. Like you also have malware that completely partitions itself off by reducing the size of the hard drive, taking one of the CPU cores, telling the main operating system it has less memory than it actually does, and it completely exists on a separate plane from the operating system, so the operating system can't even see it. Once again, my point is, once you get to this level, you are screwed unless you're doing solid network level analysis.
John, I agree with everything you all said, that there's easier ways to accomplish the bad things you're trying to accomplish. But the piece that I'm left with is there are people who assume that their hardware is just fine, it's untouchable, nobody can do bad things to it. And I question making that assumption.
Yeah. I think the people that need to worry about this aren't people buying laptops, it's people running like data centers.
That's fair.
And I would say, very sensitive nation state level stuff, right?
Well, no one would ever use Windows for that, right, John?
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. So by the time we'll get this locked down, all the vulnerabilities will be in the cloud anyway, so it won't matter. So, but no, I love this stuff.
By default.
Like this is the stuff that I find endlessly fascinating in IT because you find out it's turtles all the way down or backdoors and rootkits all the way down. So
should we do one more?
Yeah, let's close out with a good one. What do we got?
So a good one. I don't know, but
Do we
this
have
is kind of
do we have any
depressing.
chicken nugget stories? Dino
No, you got to go back pretty far to
Nico.
get another chicken story. There was one about an insurance company like tracking their
progressive
their customers
tracking
in other
yeah.
apps. Yeah, like that
Oh
one
my
was kind
God.
of interesting, kind of
There's the
depressing, but yeah.
Biden signs an executive order is kind of a nice one. I guess.
I was gonna do. Well, mine is lawsuit. Allstate used GasBuddy.
Let's do the
other
Allstate
apps
one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Whatever you guys want to do, but
Let's do the
Allstate one.
Allstate
It's
one.
kind of depressing, but it's a privacy thing, and I feel like it's a fun little. You're never safe anymore. Basically, Texas has sued Allstate, alleging that the firm and its data broker used data from apps like GasBuddy, Routely, and Life360 to quietly track drivers. So here's how I imagine this going.
Jeez.
It's like you just entered in that you drove 600 miles in this amount of time, so you had to be speeding. Like, is that like, what is the, I guess I'm like, what are they tracking? Is it driving behavior? Is it location based? Like, I'm curious what they're getting out of this.
Well, if you think about it from an insurance company's perspective, it's great data, right? Because like Life360, it'll tell you if there's hard braking, if there's cell phone use, if there's acceleration. I've talked about this on the show before where I'll get a notification. I'll find out my son is going 170 miles an hour. And it turns out he's flying. Like he's kind of on his way to becoming a flight instructor. And I would love to see somebody at an insurance company be like, we need to have a conversation about your son's driving. He's going 175 miles an hour over water.
First of all, what car? Because I want to go buy one of them.
Yeah, I don't think the Forerunner does that type of speed. It
No,
doesn't.
probably not.
But this gets into that weird like privacy place that we spend a lot of time. And I think it's good that we spend time, right? Because otherwise we're just talking pure security. But this, like whenever you have companies sharing this data back and forth with each other, it's spooky as hell.
Yeah.
This
I mean,
gets me
it says
thinking.
the data, or go ahead.
California has been trying to pass a law to tax people on driving per mile, right? And how would they do that? Like that's the technical part. But using this type of data, that would be the only thing that I could think of. And on the other note is we've seen plenty of insurance companies. Like this seems like a normal thing for most car vendors. Like how many times have we talked about car vendors or insurance companies actually tracking this data in order to bill us more?
Well,
like,
it's just such another level of an overreach, right? It's like it's because this is tracking geolocation, accelerometer data, magnetometer data. So they're like, oh, he was pointed south when he did it. Gyroscopic data. So like the
that
location
way they know you're
data,
drifting.
Yeah.
the geolocation. They have a drifting detection algorithm. They're like, your insurance rates have 2x because you were drifting last week. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just, you're right. However, this is sketchy because it's not like I downloaded, like, okay, it's one thing. If you buy a Chevy and Chevy's tracking you, you're like, well, it makes sense. Of course they are. They want to avoid the lawsuit from me driving 170 miles an hour backwards. But this is like Allstate, my company that I use for insurance or whatever. They're tracking me through a totally different app called GasBuddy that is in no way affiliated with Allstate, right? So it's like kind of a backdoor into my data. That's the sketchy part of it.
And like, so as we're talking about all this data aggregation and like, don't we all think that maybe this internet thing was a bad idea? Maybe it went.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Let's nuke it and start over.
Yeah, we
should probably reboot it.
I think Russia has the right idea. Like Russia is like, we're just gonna, like I was talking about from a story a month ago, where they're isolating their internet. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something there. Like we just need to build a new internet and ignore all the TikTok
Should we start
videos.
a second internet?
Nobody needs to order 160 pieces of chalk at like 11 o'clock at night.
No, they
right?
don't.
Like,
that's a bad choice. Life choices, Wade. And you'll be living with that for the next 20 years. So. But did you read the terms and conditions? Did you read the EULA?
I know.
And the chalk?
The chalk comes with the EULA.
Like I've
Not
spent
for
my
police
entire
use.
career,
No chalk outlines.
I feel like I've spent my entire career like working on training people, defending networks, doing all of that. And I'm like, this is what I was protecting the whole time. Huh.
You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess if anyone has a feel-good story, but I think that's...
no, it's all doom and gloom today. Dude.
Yeah, it's pretty much all doom and gloom.
It's job security, everyone. It's job security.
There's lots of security here.
Take heart that you're going to be employed. Oh, look, a QR code.
It's a safe harbor in this storm of the internet.
We need to find a way to make people want to scan those QR codes, like free T-shirt here, or we'll just
automatic check-in for.
But the thing is, we spent like 2 years podcasting about why they shouldn't, so this is kind of a reversal.
It doesn't matter. Life is pointless.
Just put the new TikTok and then put a QR code on it.
Yeah, TikTok. Click here, right?
Yeah. To increase your firewall by 2 feet.
Increase your firewall by 2 feet. Click here. Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Buymoreram.com.
Read the terms. That's too much work. No one wants to read the specs off a chip. Yeah, very good. Oh, here we go. I don't trust that. I don't trust that as a feel-good story, and we're already 2 minutes over. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming. We will see you next week. I may not be here because I'm teaching. By the way, a pay-what-you-can class. Free is always an option. There you go.
We do want to say the schedule real quick over the next few weeks. After next week, we are not going to have a newscast on Monday because we're going to be at Hacking Fest in Denver, and the newscast will be on Wednesday.
Nice.
It's going to be live.
Doing it live.
It'll be live from the floor. And then the following week after Denver, we're not going to be here because we're all going to be recovering. So then we'll resume on the, I think it was the 17th of February.
I think we need to have a conversation about that. I think we should be here.
Well, okay. Maybe we'll be.
I'll run it. It's okay.
Wade will run it.
I'll run it. I'm down with it.
Me and Wade would do it. I don't have a problem with it. We'll yammer for 3 hours.
We'll do it.
All right. Well, all right.
The problem is all the clicky button stuff that Ryan's been doing that we don't know how it works.
I don't know how it works, but I'm hoping it's
we're gonna be like, all right,
I'm hoping it's one big red button, Ryan, just one that says start news. Like I just hit that button and everything works, right? Is that how this works?
The Staples easy button.
Sort of. There's a couple more buttons in that, but you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
But I got the gist of it. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Later,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.